I would say that we do have a high view of the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
in our approach. I would say also when you get into the contents of the zine, you those like wrap up chapters is like really buttoned up with that theology, and it's there. And I think what we're offering is a moment for them to process that information, take it in, and then trust that the Holy Spirit is going to do what the Holy Spirit does. And
Yeah.
to always remember for ourselves, I think when we have to remember as grown-ups that we were drawn into the stories and that we aren't the ones who are in charge of the salvation, but that we
Yeah.
are we're guides, and we're sharing a truth that changed our entire lives. And in
Hmm.
that, I think when we stay in that place with teens, then that's like real vulnerability, authenticity, and real connection. And I think that they're going to ask you the questions. They're going to come to you with those questions that they don't maybe find the answers for. And and we're investing and paying it forward in a way. And we may not see the results for decades or however God works this out. And we had Jake and I had a situation where I had a kid in my youth group, and I was like 21. Like, what did I know? And she became a grown up, and I am a grown up. And she had this really tragic thing happen to her, and she happened to live in New York, and she called us. And like
Hmm.
Jake did the funeral of her husband who had this like tragic
Mm.
death. And so it's that kind of thing that you just don't know what's happening when you're with them
Right.
like 20 years ago, and then all of a sudden it's like, who's calling me?
Yeah.
And so those connections and the Holy Spirit is going to do what they do. So I think
Yeah.
we can trust in that. But yeah, I hear you, that idea of like too much open-endedness and too much freedom. I know we talk a lot about that, but I think when you get in the zine itself and in the guides, you're like, okay, there's like a loop around here. There's like
Yes.
we're closing the loop on that idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with the identity issue. It's like that's like a hot topic, and kids are so anxious. They are more depressed because they're saddled up with this idea that they have to figure out everything, even like their
Hmm.
own, like, is my gender up to me? Like, is everything up to me? Like, that's way too much. And I think that's part of the burden that we're seeing with this generation, that they think that they're saddled up with this expectation that they have to like figure it all out. And that's just too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. I I wanted to ask you about a little bit more about the identity issue in particular because um you guys you lay it out in such a beautiful way, and it is such a big, I mean, that topic comes up in my conversations on this podcast almost every episode. And you can see, because everyone can see this weight of self-creation or manifestation just like weighing people down. Ironically, it's supposed to be this idea that's so freeing and um, helpful to people, but it really is, like you're saying, a huge burden. Why do you think the Lord's Prayer in particular speaks to that? And how did you guys can you talk us through a little bit of how you organized and laid out things to help teens walk through that issue?
Yeah, we wanted them to have a sense of understanding of, like, first, I mean, Jesus lays it out for us and for a reason. And we want them to know that, hey, there's a reason why he told it to us this way. It's for our benefit.
Yeah.
So I think, so the way that we open it up is this idea of like, who is God and who are
Yeah.
we in light of God? So God is the creator, we're the creatures. He's the ultimate story maker. We're story makers. Um,
Hmm.
and as we sort of move through the ways in which we place identity in our lives, like, lots of people have built up their identity in like how they fixate on their own daily bread. Like,
Mm.
people feel like I provide for myself, I take care of myself. I think this is a very American thing. Like, I do it all on my
Yeah.
own. And that's an
Right.
identity issue, that isn't reliant on fully on God, and saying like, well, actually, God is the provider of all things spiritual and emotional, and all those
Mm-hmm.
things. And so it's those kind of practical things too, that I think the Lord's Prayer breaks down for us. And
Yeah.
so, but the core of it is that we want them to know that they have been adopted, that they're heirs, that they belong before they even have a sense of who they are. And so, whether they figure themselves out or not, God has adopted us.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the thing. So you're in the dance, and God will continue to reveal who you are in His likeness,
Mm.
as you like go through life. So we really saw it as a way to assure teens as they're trying to navigate so many questions, that they're having, and kind of hook them back into like the belonging, the adoption,
Yeah.
the the knowledge that they're heirs of God's kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we framed the whole issue. And yeah, and I think that's the heart of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was even struck by and looking through it like, uh, you know, I was a teen a long time ago, but I was a teen that was very found my identity probably so much in what I did and even in doing like all these spiritual things. And this zine is for that kid too, because
Yeah.
you're kind of stripping away like you're talking about with the daily bread and the Lord's provision, like he has it under control. You're not you're not in charge of climbing the ladder. So I love that too. Like there's something there for every type of teenager, whether they're, the all-star youth group
Yeah.
member or they've never been to church before and they're like, what's going on? So I think that's really
Exactly.
great.
Yeah, I mean, the core of it, is right, to God be the glory, and to release us. I think that's what the Lord's Prayer can do for us, is like release
Yeah.
us from our anxiety and cares that we feel burdened by, and we think we have to carry this load. And it's like, well, guess what? There is a God. You're a creature, and this is how He provides and cares for you. And when things go sideways, there's forgiveness and mercy, and it's all the core things we all need to know over and over again. And so, and I think that's the Holy Spirit that would work through wherever the kid is in their experience of life, and how they see themselves. The Holy Spirit is going to, right, highlight places that we think that we're doing it on our own, and
Hmm.
and we're not. So